Hello and welcome to New Frontiers on CCTV International. I'm Ji Xiaojun in Beijing. And today we're continuing with our major series about Chinese Kungfu. In the past several decades, Kung Fu films have taken the cinema world by storm with their hard-fought combat, gravity-defying stunts, and computer-generated special effects. What is not always evident on screen is something deeper, the Xia spirit or culture of chivalry that Kung Fu embraces. In the real world of Chinese Kung Fu, masters or heroes are called Xia. The knights of ancient Europe and samurais of ancient Japan, they are regarded as Xia in the eyes of the Chinese. While Kung Fu refers to the physical combat, the Xia culture is associated with moral conscience and justice. A true Kung Fu hero must be accomplished in both the martial arts and, perhaps more importantly, the culture of chivalry.
These students are attending an elective course available to students of Southwest University. The topic is the culture of chivalry in China, and the lecture hall is packed, testifying to the immense popularity of the course. To anyone familiar with Chinese history and culture, the term swordsman is of considerable interest. Almost every Chinese can recite the names of at least a few famous swordsmen and tell you of some of their legendary feats. Few, however, can come up with a precise definition of the term swordsman. So what does this term really mean? The earliest mention of the term swordsman is found in a book entitled Hanfeizi, 5 Harmful Insects. A sentence in that work reads as follows: Confucians ruin the law with literary writings, swordsmen break the law with their martial arts. Hanfeizi was a philosopher in ancient China who held that Confucians, swordsmen and merchants were all harmful insects inflicting damage on the country. From his writings, we know that 2,300 years ago, swordsmen were already a social force to be reckoned with.
韩非子呢，他是中国历史上第一位提到侠的人。那么他说：“儒以文乱法，侠以武犯禁。”他把这个儒家和侠把这两者呢相提并论。那么这里呢有一个很重要的东西，就是说韩非子他是站在朝廷的立场，也就是说他是要想统一天下。那么统一天下，这个就必然就要发生战争了。但是呢，儒家是主张和平，所以他主张以礼治天下，这个就跟朝廷的政策相冲突了。而侠呢，他是帮助弱小者，所以他是反对这种兼并的统一的战争的。那么，所以韩非子他就把儒和侠就作为当时的5种蠹虫之一把他们作为危害社会的力量。
This culture of chivalry in China took a very long time to develop. More than 200 years before the time in which Hanfeizi lived at the end of the Warring States period, two great philosophical schools coexisted, Confucianism and Maoism. Together, they laid the spiritual and behavioral principles for the eventual formation of the culture of chivalry that developed in ancient China. An important feature of a culture of chivalry wherever in the world it appears is bravery, and being possessed of it is naturally a fundamental prerequisite for a swordsman. Bravery was one of the primary qualities advocated by Confucians, but this bravery did not mean reckless courage. Confucius himself was a skilled practitioner of martial arts, and it is said he was so strong he once lifted up a massive wooden bolt over a city gate. Confucius was not in favour of using military force to solve disputes between states, and in his own often difficult life, he refused to fight back using his martial arts skills, even when faced with a desperate situation. Among his students were a number inclined toward using violence when the opportunity presented itself, but under the tutelage of the great sage, they gradually rejected this approach to problem solving. The Analects of Confucius includes a particularly brilliant comment on bravery that is well worth mentioning.
说子路投入孔门以后，劳乡立功，因为子路本人呢是一个有武功的人。那有一次，孔子就派他去打水，子路遇到一个老虎，就把老虎杀了，然后拿着老虎的尾巴就回去报功。孔子说：“你杀老虎这个办法很笨嘛。”子路心里面听了很不高兴，他就怀揣一个石头，准备呢去害孔子。然后孔子就猜到了他的意图，就对他说：“上士杀人用逼断，下士杀人用石盘。”那么这个故事讲的就是孔子他所崇尚的勇啊，他不是武力之勇，包括他在教育学生这样一个路径上面，他都是要力图让学生明白，智慧才是真正的大勇。
Confucius advocated solving problems through wisdom and at the same time urged people to build up their courage. In other words, he promoted bravery applied with wisdom. During the stage of the Warring States period in which Mencius lived, China was troubled by constant wars between competing states, and many brave and wise men ended up in the armed forces. It was a time of mire and fire that saw the death of so many soldiers that on some occasions rivers literally ran red with blood. Mencius too came to conclude that bravery had to be applied with wisdom. He believed that bravery needed to be displayed through a mind that was noble and guided by good morals. Mencius elaborated on the definition of bravery originally formulated by Confucius, but he placed greater emphasis on bravery cultivated in an individual's inner world.
所以孟子就开始崇尚自己人格上的勇。那么孟子呢，提了2个很重要的标准，一个就是大家都很熟悉的大丈夫的人格，就是富贵不能淫，贫贱不能移，威武不能屈，此之谓大丈夫。那么这是一条。就是从人格上要不卑不亢，顶天立地于天地之间。那么第2条呢，孟子提了一个大无畏的精神。那么孟子说：“虽千万人，吾往矣。”无论前面有多少艰难险阻，有千人万人在阻拦着我，那么我也会勇敢地冲上前去，因为这是为了我的理想和信念。侠最重要的一种精神就是路见不平，拔刀相助。那么这个路见不平，他是不管是否能打过人家，他都要冲上前去的，因为这是他的一个道德原则。
Mohists held a view of bravery that differed from the one held by Confucians. They advocated demonstrating one's bravery through action. Mohists adhered to the principle of living in peace, and they too promoted bravery practiced under the control of a mind infused with wisdom. Mohism appeared nearly 100 years later than Confucianism in the early years of the Warring States period, so Mohists lived in a time of constant wars and never had the luxury of observing the prevailing situation in a peaceful state of mind. Although Mohists did their best to promote peace, very few heeded their advice, and so in the end, they decided to achieve their goals through action, primarily by assisting weaker states in danger of being invaded by stronger states.
Maoists held a view of bravery that differed from that of Confucians. They advocated demonstrating courage through action. Still, Maoists adhered to the principle of living in peace, and they too advocated bravery practiced under the control of a mind infused with wisdom.
那么在现在墨子这本书里边，里面就记载了鲁班，也就是当时被称为公输盘的这个我们中国木匠行业的老祖师，要造一个云梯去帮助楚国进攻宋国。然后墨子千里迢迢就赶过去，阻止鲁班攻守所以也可以说这个云梯这个发明以后，第一次的实践其实并没派上用场。那么鲁班没有用成云梯，当时还曾经想，他说我还有一个办法墨子说你什么办法？鲁班说，他说我不说。墨子说我知道，你无非就把我杀了呗。他说但是你杀了我不要紧，我的弟子已经带了500人，在宋城上拿着手谕，专门对付你云梯的工具，在那里等着你们呢。
During the middle and late stages of the Warring States period, there was almost no difference between chivalrous men of the Confucian school and those of the Maoist chivalrous school. In the book Han Feizi, the terms Confucius chivalrous men and Maoist chivalrous men are often used in the same breath. By the time of the Han Dynasty 2,000 years ago, the notion of the chivalrous man had become extraordinarily popular. However, the number of people pursuing this new chivalrous way of life through action grew quickly, and before long there were major disturbances. The imperial court began adopting measures to suppress them. The Han imperial court established a new social system. Although it was built on the basis of that used by the previous Qin dynasty, it promoted a unified value system across the country, and it provided a large space for the rise of the chivalrous man. In the early years of the Han dynasty, the Han imperial court adopted a lenient policy towards these chivalrous men. Under these more favourable conditions, many swordsmen rose from among the common people. In the book Records of the Historian, we find mention of Guo Jie, regarded as the most famous example of the chivalrous man in Chinese history.
那么本来国姐是在荷兰呢，汉武帝就下令说，财产超过100万的都要迁到关中去，迁到天子脚下去。国姐财产不够而且也有很多人帮他，朝廷里面也有很多人帮他说话。但汉武帝说，国姐虽然没钱，但是他的影响太大了，他还是要迁走。当时他迁走的时候，很多人去送他，人家光是送给他作为送行的这个礼金就超过了1000万。所以国姐的行为，实际上他是给朝廷形成了一个极大的威胁。所以后来再有国姐手下的人去杀了人之后，汉武帝就决定要坚决镇压。
The emperor of the Han dynasty got what he wanted and Guo Jie was killed, but the world of the Brotherhood continued to grow. During the reign of Emperor Chengdi, a number of Brotherhood gangs in the capital city of Chang'an became so flagrant in their actions, they even fought against the government. These gangs comprised mainly of younger men, assigned tasks to each member by drawing lots. Those who drew red balls would go off and kill army officers. Those who drew black balls would kill civilian officials. And those who drew white balls would handle the miscellaneous killing tasks. The young men carried out these assassinations at night, and such actions of the Brotherhood in Chang'an were frequent.
当云赏他就任长安令之后，他就决定要进行彻底整治。 他先派人去地下去挖了很多大坑，都是长宽高都是几丈见方的，里边呢用那种砖把它去了，去得很光滑，爬不上去的。他把它称作虎穴，然后他再派人到下面去了解，说哪些是侠少啊，哪些经常带着兵器，耀武扬威的啊，过街过市啊。那么他有一天忽然一下调集了大批武装力量，就把这些人全都抓了。抓了之后呢，根本就不审问，只释放了其中少数人，大部分人都投到这个虎穴里面去，然后上面盖上。过了几十天再去看，全都死在里边了。
After the middle of the Han Dynasty, many wandering braves appeared. Few of them died a natural death. In his book Records of the Historian, Sima Qian describes these wandering braves as being generous in offering help to people in need and good at keeping their promises. But by the time the Han Dynasty was entering its final stages, people had come to think of them in much less favourable terms. During the Eastern Han Dynasty, Ban Gu included a chapter on the wandering braves in his book History of the Han Dynasty. In it, he called them arrogant troublemakers and stated they should be dealt with by the law. No mention of the wandering braves can be found in history books written after that time.
During the Tang Dynasty, several hundred years later, the wandering heroes appeared again. This time, though, attitudes towards them were quite different. These attitudes were heavily influenced by the writers of the day.
People living in the Tang Dynasty idolized the new wandering braves, but in a way that was quite different to that seen in the previous Han Dynasty. The reason was, these braves of the Tang Dynasty era were not real men, but figures of legend conjured up from the imagination of writers. History books written before the Tang Dynasty include biographies of real wandering braves, but during the Tang Dynasty they existed only in literary works. Wang Wei, a great poet of the Tang Dynasty, includes this line in his poem, A Young Person's Journey. I'd rather die smelling the fragrant bones of braves. But in his poem, Wang Wei is expressing his desire to engage in a meritorious deed by comparing himself to a brave. In the Tang Dynasty, through literary works, the spirit of the wandering brave is held up as an important role model for the people to emulate in serving their country. From the Song Dynasty down to the early years of the last dynasty, the Qing Dynasty, swordsmen are depicted as living in an environment that fosters a culture of brotherhood. The great ambitions harbored by their predecessors can no longer be seen, and they mainly engage in acts aimed at avenging wrongs committed in the world of the brotherhood. What they long for is the kind of life described in the novel Outlaws of the Water Margin, eating big chunks of meat, drinking wine from big bowls, and avenging wrongs committed against their friends at any cost. Many novels, such as Outlaws of the Water Margin, were published during the Yuan and Ming dynasties between 500 and 700 years ago. But in real life, such chivalrous swordsmen were scarce. During the final years of the Qing dynasty, China was troubled by internal disturbances and foreign aggression. The entire nation was faced with unprecedented challenges. As the saying goes, the times creates heroes. And so in this troubled era, a large number of chivalrous men, genuinely chivalrous men, arose. In today's China, Tan Sitong is seen as a model of the righteous chivalrous man both in deed and thought. Tan was one of the three main leaders of the reform movement of 1898, which was set in motion out of a desire to save China from annihilation. After the reform movement failed, the imperial court of the Qing dynasty ordered him arrested, but although he had the chance to escape and many urged him to do so, he stayed. At the end of his life, he said, "No reform in any country has ever succeeded without the shedding of blood. If a reform carried out in China does not see blood, our country will not prosper. If the shedding of blood is necessary, let it begin with me." Tan hoped that through his death the country would be roused to action, and his sacrifice was undeniably an act of real courage. Through his actions, Tan Sitong redefined the meaning of true chivalry. In the preface to his book On Benevolence, Tan Sitong writes as follows: "From my boyhood to my prime, all I saw was the sufferings my country and my people had to endure. I was almost unable to bear them. I felt so much pain I wanted to die, but I have kept on living until today. I don't care about my life anymore, but I hope that through my death I can win a chance for my people. I often admire the aspirations of the Moors in those ancient times and hope I can learn from their chivalrous spirit to sacrifice myself in order to realize my ideals." Tan Sitong held that in a society that had been corrupted, chivalrous action could be a way of saving the nation. In his book On Benevolence he writes, "If there is no better way, one should behave like a knight-errant. At least a knight-errant can uphold the national spirit and inspire bravery."
当他入狱以后，大刀王五也曾经组织武林高手想要去援救他，谭嗣同也拒绝了。在就义之前，谭嗣同在监狱的墙壁上写了《狱中题笔》这样一首诗，其中说：“我自横刀向天笑，去留肝胆两昆仑。”表现了一种伟大的人格力量。那么谭嗣同正是以他的自我牺牲的这样一种精神，来唤醒了中华民族自尊自强、不惜牺牲的这样一种精神。可以说，他把侠就提高到了一个为国为民的侠之大者的高度。
As a chivalrous man and a court official, Tan Sitong hoped that he could initiate a thorough reform of the Chinese government. In his times, the desire among the common people to make the country strong was great, but the common people were demonstrating their chivalrous spirit in a new way. From the end of the Qing dynasty to the early years of the Republic of China period, China became so weak that world powers referred to the nation as the sick man of East Asia. But martial arts had become popular all over the country. Martial arts practitioners hoped that they could chasten the arrogance of the world powers and boost the morale of the Chinese people at the same time. When martial arts master Huo Yuanjia won a major martial arts competition, Chinese across the nation cheered him. His victory ignited in them a spark of hope that they could determine their own destinies. Huo Yuanjia was one of the founders of the patriotic organization known as the Kungfu Society. He promoted the practice of martial arts, writing, "It was a sport for building up one's health no matter which school it was from. And only when the citizens have good health and are well developed morally and intellectually can they make their country strong."
Over time, the spirit of chivalry as observed in ancient China went through a process akin to purification. The negative elements were eliminated. What was left was a spirit of broad-mindedness, of promoting courage in pursuit of a just cause, of warm-heartedness, and of a willingness to help. Most of all, however, a chivalrous person was expected to bear in mind at all times the interests of his or her country and people. Even today, in modern China, the spirit of chivalry is admired, and it still reaches into the very depths of Chinese culture. Thank you for staying with us on today's New Frontiers. I'm Ji Xiaojun from CCTV International. Bye for now.